Again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Well, up first, a hazardous weather graphic. We've got nothing at all on there, no watches, warnings, or advisories, just a weather statement for the high water levels along the Nabezna River, which is down from the flood advisory that was out earlier, and that's going to stay high for the next several days. Otherwise, not much going on weather-wise, except for some pretty good rainfall amounts in some areas. So that's resulted in really diminished fire danger, even up over the upper Yukon Valley. Just an area, small area there, up over the northern part of the flats there to the southern part of the extreme eastern Brooks Range. They're right along the Porcupine River a little bit. Let's see, Chukitzik still reached 77 degrees today, some sunshine there, and otherwise no attack had about 70 degrees, and that's another area high fire danger. The only other one besides the one over here in the east, they're in the Selawik Valley, western Kobuk Valley possibly, and then on over toward Buckland and Kotzebue and the peninsula there in the high to very high fire danger, and that's it around the state. Due to, again, rainfall, like Northway Tok picked up 0.4 of an inch today during the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. Yakutat had over 2 inches in that same time period. On satellite, there's the cloudiness here that brought all the rain into Yakutat, and toward Dry Bay, they had a little over an inch in that area. Otherwise, Sitka had about half an inch of rain. By contrast, down the south, much lighter amounts, with the net only picking up about 1 or 2 hundredths today. And some areas of light rain fell over the North Gulf Coast, showers, Copper River Basin into south central Alaska, about 5 hundredths falling in Anchorage here. And clouds and showers up over the interior. Again, well, pretty good showers here with Chattanooga, just west-northwest of Fairbanks, picking up about half an inch of precipitation today as well. So there was some pretty good rainfall amounts here over the eastern interior areas, and lighter amounts back to the northwest, and then this area cloudiness, just light amounts, generally less than 1/10 of an inch or just a few hundredths of an inch. And it looks like it's starting to dry out over Kodiak Island, the flow becoming more westerly, downsloping, and kind of an upper level disturbance over the southwest interior that brought the cloudy, cool, wet conditions, damp conditions to that area. That's going to be sliding eastward, is sliding eastward now, and that's going to tend to clear the skies out and dry it out across southern Cook Inlet and Kodiak Island along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula later on. Otherwise, out to the west, was a little bit of moisture around the Pribilofs earlier today due to this cloud feature right in here, right when it was over, and that's moved off to the east. Another weak front coming in from the west with more rain, fog, and drizzle. Wind's not much of a factor at all. In fact, not only with that, but anywhere around the state today. On the chart, you can see just a weak trough out here, really barely a front. Could have drawn a front in, but went with a trough. And a little bit of light rain over the Pribilofs. Otherwise, lots of clouds, lots of IFR, lots of marginal VFR, except here over the eastern Aleutians. A pretty nice day in Alaska once again, some sunshine, and actually there were some partly sunny conditions both at Adak and possibly Atka as well. Really isolated in thunderstorms, mostly Canada, scattered, isolated there. We still have a chance of possibly ones popping up here over the northern Kuskokwim Valley or northwestern Brooks or Alaska Range area. Showers on up Koyukuk Valley to the north, or to barely onto the north slope there, with some clearing and sunshine back to the northwest. Also along Kodiak Island, you see the clearing starting to show up. Still some clouds over the island, showers over the Alaska Peninsula, and the rain over the northern panhandle again, and more showery down to the south. Another trough will keep it about the same there. Another trough swings in to the southeast coast, so it's going to stay periods of rain. Probably won't be as heavy on the Yakutat area from, well, actually Sitka on up to Yakutat. It should be lighter amounts than what you saw during the day today, but it's going to stay wet and unsettled. Lighter amounts down to the south, maybe even shutting off altogether down toward Metlakatla, Net, and Ketchikan. Look for maybe some clearing along the North Gulf Coast with just isolated showers over the mountainous terrain of south central Alaska. This system pulling eastward into the Gulf, drier northwest flow clearing the skies out over Kodiak, and not too bad over Bristol Bay. And the western interior, look for a general decrease in the cloudiness with the thunderstorms possibly lingering through the evening here over the eastern interior areas, but winding down along with the showers. But the showers will probably last the entire night into morning here over the east side. And maybe some fog, low clouds, drizzle on the Arctic coast. This warm front, weak warm front, brings a chance of moisture into St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, Tin City and Wales, and those areas. And frontal action out here. The first one kind of washes out. That's that first trough. Another front pushes eastward here and brings more rain, light rain, fog, and drizzle into the Aleutians. This weak feature just keeps the IFR in with kind of thick dew, heavy dew, over the central to eastern Aleutians possibly, maybe not quite making it to Pribilofs, but tomorrow it may graze them. Kind of just got a real weak trough pattern out here over the eastern part of the Bering Sea. This front edging slowly eastward with some light rain. And then this warm front, this whole system really not making a big move to the east at all. Still about the same, maybe a little bit farther to the east, but not much tomorrow afternoon. Mostly sunny, warmer here over the southwest interior. Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak, right on up to the western Arctic coast. Pretty good chance of sunshine. And still into the 70s, some areas here over the upper Yukon Valley, maybe even the Tanana Valley. But more clouds now result in some thunderstorms, scattered, isolated thunderstorms with scattered showers here. Not as wet as it was today, and still wet. A couple of troughs. That system slowly moving eastward, taking its time, pushing across the panhandle. Still off the coast, so chance of rain in the north or rain, but again, not as heavy as what you saw today. And showers will probably end, maybe some clearing down over the southern areas. Outlook for Tuesday. Another system here, actually that one slides southeastward a little, and you got kind of a frontal boundary there right across Dixon Entrance, and that's close enough to keep a chance of rain in over the southern part of the panhandle. Up to the north now, your turn to see drier conditions, partly sunny skies, risk of an afternoon shower over the mountains. Not much of one though. Isolated chance of a thunderstorm there over the Urango Mountains and also up over the eastern North Slope area. Otherwise, probably in Canada, just scattered showers, partly mostly sunny skies. Temperatures into the mid-70s here for the Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula area. Near 70 Copper River Basin into the 70s, kind of recovery there. And this warm front still slowly moving, but pumping more moisture into the northwest or the western Brooks Range, western Arctic coast, but not a lot. Across the Seward Peninsula, and maybe some low clouds, fog, and drizzle for the Kuskokwim Bay area. Otherwise, mostly sunny western interior. A couple of sunny days coming up for Kodiak, and this front pushes rain finally eastward to the western Alaska Peninsula and Pribilofs. Lows for tonight, 55 to 60 upper Yukon Valley. Otherwise, mostly in the 50s in the interior, the 40s Arctic coast, and upper 40s Copper River Basin. And for your highs tomorrow, 70s, a little more widespread than today from the northern Kuskokwim Valley, lower 70s, Susitna Valley to near 70 Anchorage area and Kenai Peninsula, and Tanana Valley up into the upper Yukon Valley. Lows the following morning, mid-50s in the interior, upper 40s along the Arctic coast and Copper River Basin, otherwise upper 40s, lower 50s, southwest interior, near 50 in the Aleutians. Highs 60s, southeast coast, 70s, south central Alaska, the central interior, all the way over toward the east side there. North Slope not bad in the mid-60s with mid to upper 60s over the southwest interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
We begin to flying weather. Lots of IFR over the Bering Sea tomorrow morning. Aleutians right up into Bristol Bay, north side of the Alaska Peninsula, along the southwest coast, up through the Bering Strait, catching Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, and kind of grazing the western central Arctic coast and then right into the east side there, and then a swath back into the central North Slope. IFR here, south side of the eastern Alaska Range, southward to the Wrangell Mountains, into the Gulf, and some of that eastward there to the central southeast coast. For the afternoon, marginal VFR all of the Panhandle into the Gulf of Alaska, IFR just south of Prince William Sound, and a patch of lingering marginal VFR up here over the greater Fairbanks area, actually, the upper Tanana Valley or so, Nenana. Actually, that could be from, just Healy, say, on up into the White Mountains. Otherwise, VFR for the remainder of the interior, IFR off the Arctic coast, and then IFR here continues over the Bering Sea with some marginal VFR right up along the western coastline across the central Seward Peninsula into the west. And for Tuesday morning, VFR here, interior, central interior areas, and most of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Bethel right on the edge. IFR, though, for Bristol Bay, solid IFR, kind of a broad brush there for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, through the Bering Strait again, and maybe catching the central Arctic coast. Marginal VFR here up into the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, but maybe not making it to Eagle. You're kind of right on the edge there. Marginal VFR down across most of the southeast coast with IFR here, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, east of Kodiak Island. And that for the afternoon, so this kind of an expanded area of IFR now, just along the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, Montague Island to Cape Yakataga, and then VFR for the Panhandle, VFR interior Alaska. Marginal VFR there, western Kobuk Valley, Selawik on out to Kotzebue, then IFR, Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, and just grazing the western coast there. Eastern North Slope, though, VFR, solid IFR again here for the Bering Sea, except maybe Atka, and that extends to a lesser extent into Bristol Bay. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan tomorrow looking pretty good. VFR for both passes, either approach. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, possibly starting out marginal, but I think it'll be VFR instead. So optimistically, I'll go with VFR the entire day, but rainy. Better chance probably will be marginal to start, and then VFR maybe by noon before, hopefully, throughout the afternoon. And then windy, same pattern, starting out with the lower conditions, better conditions later on in the morning through the afternoon. Isabel looks occasionally marginal throughout the day. And Mentasta, a little lower, starting out IFR and only becoming marginal in the afternoon. For Tanita, marginal VFR to start and VFR to finish. With Portage, same trend, maybe some marginal VFR early on and then VFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR for both passes. And the freezing levels looking like this, about 8,000 feet or 6 to 8,000 feet here with kind of another cool upper low pushing through or trough there, and 8,000 up over the central interior areas with much warmer conditions here back over the Bering Sea, especially the southern Bering Sea central Aleutians, up to 14,000 feet there for Adak and Atka, 12,000 feet just south of the Pribilofs. Icing, kind of a band here with that boundary out in this area, but anything in the Aleutians above 14,000 feet here, sloping down to about 7,000 feet, that just grazing the Cape Lisburne, Point Hope area possibly. So really not much of a threat. And maybe some mixed icing here over the eastern interior areas and scattered areas of icing, rime or mixed, above 7,000 feet over the Panhandle. Really nothing too serious. And for the jet stream, kind of weak ridging here over the Alaska Peninsula, trough over the Russian Far East, another one just south of the coastline there. This one, the one coming through today up in this area, the one back to the west here, moves to this position tomorrow, keeps it unsettled over the Panhandle with a jet to the south. 9,000 feet, 5 to 15 knot winds for the southeast coast, 5 to 10 over the interior, increasing here 25 to 35, Bering Strait up to the western Arctic coast, only 15 to 25 for the Aleutians. 3,000 feet, lighter winds, 15 to 20 out in the Aleutians. Light and variable under high pressure over the interior, and turbulence, light to isolated moderate chop here from St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait to Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne.
Technology. It's the rhythm of our everyday life. We're more dependent on satellite and communication systems than at any other time in history. Disruptions can affect our economy and even our safety. To prepare for the effects of such events, and minimize impacts, we need to look outside our atmosphere, some 93 million miles away, at a star we call the Sun. It's our main energy source. It warms the Earth and grows our food. While the Sun and the space between may seem pleasant from our perspective, it's anything but peaceful. At its surface exists a chaotic state of eruptions and radiation. And unlike Vegas, what happens at the Sun doesn't stay at the Sun.
Space weather is essentially emissions from the Sun, radiation, magnetic field that erupts from the solar surface, pumped out into space, sometimes right towards Earth. When it impacts the Earth, it impacts our technology. That's what we call space weather.
These solar events and their effects at Earth can disrupt systems we take for granted. From causing blackouts to the power grid, to delaying offshore drilling operations due to inaccurate GPS data. Interference with communication systems can force air traffic to reroute and impact rescue response and coordination. Outside our atmosphere, solar radiation can harm astronauts and the systems they depend on. The good news is that these eruptions can be detected early. Forecasters at the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center in Boulder, Colorado, have their eyes on the Sun at all times.
The Space Weather Prediction Center is part of the National Weather Service and is very much like a normal weather forecast office. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're looking at data, we're looking at imagery, we're looking at model outputs. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches of imminent activity to our customers so they can take action.
In many ways, forecasting space weather is a lot like forecasting hurricanes. Those who rely on space weather forecasts, like electric power grid managers, are informed early on and can begin taking protective action.
When we see an eruption on the Sun, space weather forecasters will issue a watch. This is much like a hurricane watch. When a hurricane sits offshore of Miami, for example, perhaps 48 hours out, we too can see way in advance that something may be coming towards the Earth.
As the storm moves toward us, it hits a monitoring spacecraft orbiting 1 million miles away from Earth.
It's kind of our buoy sitting out there offshore, and that hurricane about 30, 45 minutes before it makes landfall, we'll get the measurements from the buoy. That's what this spacecraft does for us. That big eruption that left the Sun hits the spacecraft. Now we've got the measurements of exactly what's going to impact us here on Earth, and we issue the warnings to give the power grid a heads up that the storm is now imminent. An interesting element to this whole process is that when the forecasters issue the alert, the power grid receives the alert, takes the necessary actions to protect the grid, and the average citizen never knows anything ever happened.
The number of customers who rely on space weather information continues to grow. As our reliance on technology increases, so will our need for constant monitoring of the Sun.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
GPS has changed society. Most people don't realize how remarkable and how many different applications there are.
the GPS has become an integral part, not just of our daily lives as far as cell phones and guidance for our cars and mapping, but the whole system in agriculture is really relying heavily on high accuracy GPS.
So they're using GPS to plant those seeds with centimeter accuracy. And then they can come behind it and irrigate and fertilize right where that seed is with that 1 centimeter accuracy.
The GPS creates a line for the operator that he can steer along, or you go to another level and the operator doesn't steer anymore and the tractor has an automatic steering system on it, much like a cruise control on a car, except for when I push the button, it doesn't drive a set speed. When I push a button, it stays on a predefined line.
You don't even need lights. You can do it at nighttime. You program your GPS and it's driving that tractor for you. So it's huge, and it's changing the way that the farmers farm the fields.
6 or 7 days out.
There's an interest in GPS applications from space weather side because when the sun is eruptive, it causes GPS to falter, and in some cases it doesn't work at all.
Productivity may suffer to a certain degree in that there's no way that I as a human being can steer as good 8 hours a day as a GPS system's going to do. It's going to be the same all day long. Some of the other application technologies, those are going to be gone. We're not going to have the ability to do good section control on sprayers and planters and fertilizer applicators without GPS.
We see a huge growing customer base in so many different industries, so many different sectors now relying on GPS and high precision GPS. They're all big customers for us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. About the same general slow melting up to the north, or movement up to the north here. And then this area of ice along the north of the barrier islands there, slowly melting, but really not moving at all since it's grounded. And same sort of pattern expected for the next 5 days there for the sea ice, which is no big changes. Southwest 15 on the south coast, and south to southeast 15 knots, 7-foot seas on the north coast. Light southerlies 10 knots for Lynn Canal and south 15 Stevens Passage. Light southeast winds for Clarence Strait with seas 2 to 3 feet overall in the inside waters. And for Tuesday, north to northwest 10 knots here or so over the central and southern inside waters with 2-foot seas. Light southerlies Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, seas 2 feet, and south winds at 10 knots there along the coast of Prince of Wales Island. Central coast east 15, turning northeast 15, and then up on the extreme north coast there, northwest 15 knots with 5 to 6 foot seas. Prince William Sound, light east winds tomorrow at 10 with seas only 2 feet. East 10 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast. The east side there northeast at 15, not much difference. Seas 4 to 5 feet, northwest 15 for the Barren Islands. And the strongest winds will be in Kachemak Bay tomorrow. Kamishak Bay tomorrow, not Kachemak, Kamishak, northwest at 20 there, much lighter in Kachemak Bay. East winds at 10 knots for Cook Inlet and seas only 2 feet. And then a little bit of an increase in the winds here for Cook Inlet on Tuesday. South of the Forelands up to 20 knots, northern Cook Inlet south 15. South 15 also for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, southerlies at 10. Northwest at 10 for the western North Gulf Coast, and really light winds here with southerlies at 10 knots, seas 4 feet for the Middleton Island zone, and continued light winds out of the northwest for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, west-northwest, 15 knots, about sums it up tomorrow, 3 to 5 foot seas. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest 15, seas 4 feet. And variable 10 for the peninsula here with 3 foot seas. Bristol Bay, though, west at 15, seas 3 feet. Then south winds at 10 knots for Bristol Bay on Tuesday, and that extends all the way down the Bering Sea side of the peninsula with really slight seas at 2 feet. And then the south side here, southwest at 10 from Cape Sarachev up to Sitkinak, seas only 3 feet. And southwest 15, east side of Kodiak Island, as well as Shelikof Strait. For the Fox Islands tomorrow, variable winds, 10 to 15 knots from, again, varying directions, and 3 to 4 foot seas. South 15, Adak and Atka, south 15, all the way out to the Shimya and Attu area across the western Aleutians with those seas maybe 4 to 5 feet. And then on Tuesday, we'll go 20 knots out of the southwest here from Shimya all the way toward, but not quite to Adak there, with seas about 6 feet, southwest 15 staying light there for Adak and Atka, 4 to 6 foot seas, and Fox Islands, south to southwest 10 to 15, and seas 3 to 5 feet. For the southwest coast, we've got southwest winds at 10 to 15, southeast 15 for the Pribilofs, south 15 St. Matthew Island, about 20 knots from the south for St. Lawrence Island. Outlook for Tuesday, St. Lawrence Island, we've got southerlies 20 knots, south 15 along the Yukon Delta coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeast at 10, southeast 15 for the Pribilofs, turns southerly at 15 for St. Matthew Island. Eastern Boulevard Seacoast, really light easterlies at 5 knots with 1 to 2 foot seas. Pick it up to 10 knots on the central coast and turn it to south at 15 on the west side. And small craft advisory southerlies 25 knots from Cape Beaufort down to the Bering Strait in the Wales area. And that holds here from Wales up to Cape Thompson, south 25 through Tuesday for small craft advisories, otherwise 15 knots up to Cape Beaufort, southwest 15, central and western Arctic coast, east side here, southeast, a little bit more than tomorrow, 10 to 15 knots with 2 to 3 foot seas. For tonight, again, high pressure here, drying it out. Should see a decrease in the clouds here, Kodiak Island, along and south of the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutian Range, even over the southwest interior, all the way up to the Brooks Range. And showers and thunderstorm activity, the thunderstorm isolated this evening over the eastern interior down into the Burwash area. Otherwise, just isolated showers with maybe some clearing. North Gulf Coast, less rain, but stays damp and unsettled here across the Panhandle tonight and into tomorrow as well, with sunshine and warmer temperatures over the interior. This warm front should spread a little more rain in on Tuesday. Otherwise, mostly sunny for south central Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.